So like most of us, depending on the country where we live in, and we are uh, doing this one in Australia. This was a request by our partner in Australia, and now this series is specially actually targeted to audience in Australia and the region. Uh, I mean, we heard the news on the media and friends and chat groups, etc. After a few weeks, the business has started to take precautions for work continuity, where we also started to take social distancing and complete stay at home more seriously. I do not want to go into the pandemic details, nor I'm an expert, uh, but as call center studio, the immediate reaction we took were customers calling in to move their operations uh, to home offices, and uh, we actually moved our stuff to remote work 5 weeks ago. We are currently operating in 3 different countries and 5 different locations. So that was the actually initial steps that we take, and that was the reason why we started to make this webinar series. So going back to the call center specific effects of the coronavirus pandemic and the agenda for our webinar today, we want to discuss the following. Of course, the participants, please feel free to ask any topics you might like through the chat window. So we'll try to answer it as much as we can. So we want to look at some remote work, home office, home agents, the terms that are around for a long time, and how are we focused today to migrate such working conditions. So this is one of the topics. And we want to discuss why the contact center operations are more critical than the other operations, and the factor of agent psychology. The third topic is what are the typical steps and time frame for migration. If you want to migrate your operations, you want to send your agents home, what are the critical steps that you need to take, and what will be the long-term implications, and what are the precautions can contact center professionals can take now. And then we want to share with you some of the case studies that we have been living through this 4 or 5 weeks. So the first one is the remote work. The question we face a lot is some companies are more ready to remote work than the others. And first we think that you need to maybe do an analysis and how is your culture ready for remote work. Do you use any conference tools, or have you been using any like we are using now? And this actually depends from country to country. Some countries like the ones in Europe and US, the usage of such webinars, web conferences are quite common, like Zoom, Meet, Skype, Slack, WhatsApp groups, and like Trello, where you have remote teams. So this is the first question. And the second question is, even if you are using these tools, are your executives and teams remote work friendly? So does your manager encourage virtual collaboration? Are your personnel savvy enough with remote tools? So that's one of the items as well. I have been speaking to a friend of mine. He's working for Microsoft. We actually had a chat yesterday. He's responsible for the Far East region, which I think also he's responsible for Australia. He's living in Singapore, and he told me that they had the management team had a coffee hour each day, so they need to spend 30 minutes. It's not compulsory, but during that 30 minutes, they're not. They're all on the video chat, and they're not talking about business. It's just like you're in the office and you want to grab a cup of coffee and you need to, talk about the stuff you had yesterday or the movie you watched. So that this was one of the things that he told me. It was interesting. Another friend actually told me that they had a manager in the company. So as you know, we are all using calendars and we are putting meetings in the calendars. She started putting time offs for the for his team's members. So she started putting 3, 4 every day. So in order to remind that you don't need to work all day and you need to relax. And she was putting some interesting happy video links. So these are the things that we did not see before, before this way that we started working. So that's I wanted to share. Another topic, of course, is that we have necessary software devices and internet bandwidth to be able to properly work from home. And what are the advantages of cloud technologies? One of the reasons that we were able to, for the last 2-3 weeks, we were able to send more than 4,000 agents home, around 150 customers. So, and actually, we don't know the real number, because if you are using a cloud technology, especially in the call center sector, it doesn't matter where your agents are logged in. So we found out after 1 week, when we started calling the customers and checking them out, was some of them already moved to remote work, and we didn't even know. So this is one of the advantages of cloud technologies. And Matt, is there any questions? Should I check the chat window if any questions on this?
Currently, we don't have any questions, Cenk, at this time that I can see.
Okay. Hank, do you have anything to add to those? Can you give us a bit, I should say, this is these are the things that you're seeing elsewhere. Can you give some examples about, what you guys are doing in Australia? Or are you familiar with these kind of technologies?
I am familiar with all these technologies, but I don't believe, till this pandemic situation, I don't believe people were using these tools a lot, other than the possibly the Teams, and obviously the Skype, which is the old version of the Teams. The Zoom and LogMe and Meet conferences has just came in because of the need that's happening from working from home, and one-on-one video conferences needs, and that's where it just started to come up. And we can see that it's I'm getting calls pretty much every day from the customers. They have their call centers, that's fine, applications, but they want to have the Zoom as well, just for the same reason, to have the video conferencing.
Mm-hmm. Okay, great. So why are call center operations are critical? Call centers are probably the most dense working spaces. You have cubicles next to each other, and you are, 100 or 1,000 or thousands or hundreds of agents are sitting together. So The immediate feedback we got from our customers was when this pandemic like spread it out and it was more on the media. The agents were really very concerned. So they need to go to work every day, and they are very close to each other, so they cannot control what is called social distancing, and they are speaking all day. So the morale was down. This is why after we started, as I mentioned, around 4,000 agents in the first 2 weeks, we got a lot of emotional thank you messages. So this was one of the reasons why we wanted to do this series. We know that globally more than 65% of call centers today are running on traditional conventional hardware, which are on-premise based PBX systems. And it is almost impossible to migrate agents to remote work. So what some of our new customers were doing, because we are also getting some new requests to migrate other than our already existing customers, is that they simply forward the pivot telephone number to the secretary, and this is not for the call centers, but this is for the offices. So of course a call center isn't using a PBX system, but because of the urgency of the situation, what they did was they sent home the agents and tried to connect via different methods like VPN or MPLS, and of course this took some time. They had to check whether the agents, after you send the agents home, what was the bandwidth that they were using at home, what was the some of the customers gave the PCs that they were using in the call center, so they had to carry it. Others had some laptops. If you have a personal laptop, then you had to configure it according to the company security policies, etc. So this was a real mess, wherein compared to if you are using a cloud solution, you just open a browser, you just log in, and if you are using WebRTC like we do, you don't have to even install a plugin. So these are we were actually trying to promote this, tell this to our existing customers, but it is now more evident than ever. Then these are some important parts for the sector, call center sector. And also, it is not just important that you are sending them home to get the calls, because all of these systems are integrated with other parties. So you need to take care of the integration as well. Your cloud call center platform can migrate home easily, but then you need to see the other like CRM kind of or ticketing solutions. If they're not on cloud, then again it's a bit of a problem. So any questions on these? Matt?
Currently, no questions, Cenk, under the
Okay.
chat.
Let's move on then. So we try to mention the typical migration steps and timing, and this is for I must underline that this is for call center studio according to our experience. So oftentimes the first thing we need to do is the telco setup, the trunk, the VPN, and number porting, if you're going to migrate a new operation to call center studio. IVR setup is actually pretty straightforward. Depending on the size of the IVR, it takes around 1 to 3 hours. I remember in one of our large e-commerce customers, we were able to do a 117 step IVR in 1.5 hours. So we are able to do it quite fast. And the other thing is the definitions, user, supervisor, phone numbers. If they're using a chat or social media, like web chat, or now we have integrated WhatsApp channel as well as Facebook Messenger. So this also depends actually how long it would take for you to get the business WhatsApp business number, but it's again in terms of days. And then the integrations. The important part here is how easy can you integrate with third-party applications. In our case, we have open APIs on our website. So if you have a development team, actually you don't need us. You can do it on your own. There are examples of the APIs on our website. So this is quite straightforward as well. And then the network and security definitions. Again, in our case, we have 256 bits encryption from end to end. So some of our customers are running on virtual private networks for extra security, but most of our customers are also running on internet. So we never had a problem in that sense, thanks to Google, by the way. And then we have user and administration trainings. A typical agent who has been working for more than 1-2 years is the average training time is 15 minutes. It's a very self-explanatory screen. It is very easy to. It's really we think it's one of the simplest systems for the users available. And in our experience, it takes we could do it as short as 1 day to 7 days. There are larger implementations that could go more than that, but as I told you, we are our team has migrated homework 5 weeks ago, and we are like working when we have team meetings, the topic is they are working more than they were in the offices. So this, in our case, we are working really hard to send agents home every day. So this is a typical of the timeline which takes us. This is one of, by the way, if you want to migrate your call center to remote work, this is the typical steps you need to take. And now we are seeing, since that it is predicted that more than 2 million agents are just in the United States. So it is predicted that some of the companies, call center vendors, are claiming they could do that. We certainly hope that they can now. Because before the pandemic, we were seeing other kinds of latencies in such migrations. So that's what I wanted to point out. Any questions on the migration steps? I'm moving on. Sorry,
no
yeah.
questions currently.
Okay.
Yeah,
I'm moving on, fast, so we can maybe add. I have a couple of slides left. maybe we can answer some questions and go deeply with the case studies. And what will be the long-term implications of this? Currently, we do not know how long the lockdown will be, or what other restrictions in the mobility are going to last, depending on country to country. Last week, the number of lockdown countries around the world was around 35. So we are trying to keep a good track of this. We know that, I think it was last week, you had a restriction, or do you have it, Hank? What is the situation? You're not in a lockdown, are you?
Yes, yeah, actually, I mean, kind of. There are a lot of limitations in the country, and they closed the borders to international passengers, and just Australians can come in, and when they come in, they have to be quarantined.
Mm-hmm.
For work-wise, they are recommending everyone to work from home unless you have to. That's the only time you're allowed to go work.
Okay, so it's not a complete lockdown. It's like some restrictions
That's
are
right.
in place.
That's right.
Okay.
That's right.
Okay, yeah, that's one of the steps that some countries take before the switching to actual lockdown. But what we predict is the businesses will have to comply with that. I mean, this kind of working in the future. There are some humors in the social media, like, who enabled the digital transformation of your company? Is it the CTO, the CEO, or the coronavirus? So I think that this is very true. We, as a cloud-born call center software, have been trying to get the message for the customers, for the potentials that we were visiting, and trying to tell the benefits of the cloud. As I told you, almost currently 1/3 of the softwares are on cloud if you're a call center professional. So we think that after this pandemic is through, it's going to be faster for companies to be switching over to cloud solutions. And we think that it is going to be affecting the industry in general in a good way, because what currently they are doing is because they need to stick to their old solutions. It is difficult to harness change, and we oftentimes we see that the companies are sometimes reluctant to go to unless there's a business need, or possibly a professional that is coming and trying to disrupt the current operations. So we think that this is going to be at least changing faster after this pandemic is going to end in a short while, hopefully. So there are some case studies that we needed to share with you. There is a major metropolitan municipality, and I think the population is more than 2 million that they're managing. And currently, they are using a call center studio in their call center, and they have a mission-critical health and ambulance hotline, apart from other community services. And they were able to migrate in half a day. So they decided to, and this was before there isn't, in their case, there still isn't a complete lockdown, but because of the I would say situation in the second slide about the call centers, they decided to send their agents home, and it only take half a day. And it was on the TV. Somehow they were on the news. We heard it by surprise, and after that, some other metropolitan municipalities, again the large ones, we had calls from them, and now we are migrating two of the large municipalities as well. So this was actually a public, I would say public example that we had, and in their case they acted faster than the private sector. So the second one is a large distributor of medicine with a 4,000 pharmacy network. They're receiving orders from pharmacies daily, and sometimes more than once in a day. And they have the huge network of delivery trucks to service those pharmacies. Of course, maybe their operation is one of the few who are open even in the lockdown, and they migrated in 1.5 days. And there's another job portal, and they are full outbound. The first two operations, the cases are inbound. Now this is an outbound, because they're calling out companies and trying to convince them to place some ads for the positions that they're looking for. And they migrated in 1 day, and we got a thanks message from the IT director. And there is another global payment gateway company. They migrated in 2 days. Now you might say, why in 2 days? Others are like half 1 day. So they had an integration with Salesforce. It's not that it is difficult to integrate with Salesforce, but it was they were quite amazed to do that as well. So we have other examples like HR recruitment portals, large airline ticketing portal. There was a urgency with the airlines portal, because after the flights were canceled, they had a huge load on their call center because people wanted to cancel tickets and they couldn't know how to do. We were lucky enough to, I think I didn't mention about our self-service capabilities, and now even artificial intelligence. We are using Google's what was the name, Matt? The Google's thing that we are using
For Google, Cenk?
Yeah,
You're
Dialogflow.
talking
Dialogflow.
The Dialogflow or the
Yeah.
analytics version? Yeah.
Yeah. We are integrated with Dialogflow. What Dialogflow does is, if you're using an Android phone, it's the same version that is, it's an artificial intelligence bot, I should say. So in some cases, we took them in service, which allowed in this case actually, if you want to cancel your airline ticket, in some basic simple cases you don't need to get connected with an agent, so you can do it online by yourself. So these are some of the case studies that we had in mind to share with you. But I'll be more than happy if there are any questions, so that
Yes,
we can
actually, Matt actually had a question. He was talking about before, whenever we were talking about the shutdown in all around the world, different lockdowns. He said in Australia they're kind of in a quasi lockdown for 90 days, starting this month.
Mhm.
And he was wondering, whenever, like, for example, if he migrated his existing contact center to our, online cloud solution, um, what what would potentially happen afterwards? And then he was asking as far as, can he cancel the service after, the lockdown is finished? So these were some of his
Mhm.
questions that he has listed.
Actually, a good point that will now allow me to tell you about the pricing model that we have. Call Center Studio is a pay-as-you-go solution. So what we do is we are at the end of each month, we are billing our customers according to the agents, the users that were on the system uh, on that month. What that means is, I don't know the size of the operation that Matt has, but for the sake of simplicity, let's say he wants uh, to migrate with 100 agents. So what he can do is he can migrate 100 agents. I think we can do in a couple of days if there's a very complex integration. So what he can do is he can migrate to us. He can use us for a couple of months, and let's say after 2 months he wants to go back to his traditional or conventional system, he can do this. So what he has to pay will be, of course, it is difficult for me to say without knowing the details. But let's say it was a simple inbound or outbound operation with minimal integration needs. Then in most cases we don't even charge a setup fee. So he can start using us, and he will be billed uh, as per the user that he's putting on the system. He's going to pay the first month, the second month, and then he wants to go back. Let's say at the middle of the third month, we're going to invoice him half of the month, like 15 days, so he can go back. So the thing is, he wouldn't need to make an investment. So that might be, I understand that the questions, one of the questions that the call center professionals has, because obviously everyone is trying to cut down costs. So while cutting down costs, you have another. You might think that, okay, my current system is not allowing me to do what I need to do, but I don't want to incur another uh, big capex to the company, when in fact we are an opex. And as I told you, you can switch to our platform, you can use it, and then you go back. But just to remind, it is not very often. Once you start using it, most of the time there isn't going back. Especially if you are migrating from the industry leaders. We have very low churn rate. Our NPS score is, we did an audit to an independent auditor, and NPS score was 89, which is, they said it is quite remarkable for a B2B SaaS company. Yeah, but we have very low churn. And the reason is, I think we keep customers happy, because in that model, because we are not selling it actually, we're not selling licenses. In order for us to keep making money, we need to keep you in the system. If we cannot satisfy your needs, if we don't make you happy and you leave, then we lose revenue. So the whole company is organized around making the customers happy. So you stick with us, and we have a long business together. But thank you for the question.
Yes, and he actually has a follow-up question, and I'll read it now, if you don't mind. He was saying, in terms of call center setup, if we move to a new system, would it be a painful exercise? You kind of went on further with this, but if you want to dive into it, as far as creating the same setup that he currently has, such as his settings, IVR agents, rules, and etc. And then he also stayed in the new system. And then if it was not easy, as we started with the with his current call center, we would what he was elaborating on was he doesn't want to be burdened by this whole process again. So if you want to just elaborate on like how the ease of setup is to move and transition, like his current settings, IVRs, and rules, etc.
Mm-hmm.
To our platform.
Yeah, that's a common concern. If you have been working in the working with the legacy solutions that are on the market today, it is hard to believe that we could do it this fast. What I would suggest is it is very easy for us to start a demo account. So most of the times we are trying to convince the customer to set up a demo account. Actually, once the account is set up, the first step is to get the telco connection, uh, most of the time with a SIP trunk, to integrate with the telco. And after that, uh, in theory, the customer can do all the things that we are doing by himself or herself, because we are using the same administration screen to set up all the necessary steps. I can give you some examples from the UK. In the UK, there is a very large hotline that we have set up a demo in half a day. They have 1,400 agents, and actually not agents, but they are volunteers working for that non-profit organization. So, and one issue with that customer was they were not able to give us the recordings of the IVR, meaning the announcement that when you call the hotline. So they didn't have the recording. So what we did is we are using Google's WaveNet technology. It's a text-to-speech technology. So I think there are more than 30 voices currently. So you are you can choose the one you like most. And what we have is we write down the text of the IVRs and we load it into Google WaveNet and we have the announcements. So it is very straightforward. We had a similar case in Nigeria. Actually, we got them up and running in 1.5 days. They had an integration with Zoho, which is a CRM, and they wanted to have also social media, WhatsApp, and Facebook integrations. So it took a little bit longer. And we figured out that in Nigeria, there isn't any fixed line network, so everybody is using mobile phones. So it took us, as I told you, 1.5 days to set up. They were able to give us the recordings, though. So we were able to use those recordings. But it is really, I suggest if anyone is interested on how fast this could be done, please contact us after the webinar. We have the details. You can reach us from our call center as well, and let's set up a demo account for you. And I don't know if we have Umut here. He's responsible for the region, and he will be more than happy to get you a setup account and walk you through the main steps, and you would have a better idea of what we are doing differently and how fast we're doing it.
I don't have any more questions from Matt, but maybe just kind of open up. And I just want to just state, Matt, did you have any more questions that you kind of wanted to write down that we can answer potentially now or later?
We got 5 minutes left. Maybe we can ask Hank, if he has any questions, or if he,
Yeah, of course.
yeah, what are some Australian specific issues, and then we can address maybe in the future.
Sure. Thanks, Cenk. I mean, in Australia, one of the things that I can think of, all the timelines are great, especially after getting all the telco. They can be done all in parallel as well. Like when the call center studio team is working on the IVRs and the prompts and everything. On the other hand, we can also work on getting the telco and trunk set up. But as you can, as you probably experience globally as well, that might be challenging. That 1 to 3 days might be a little bit longer, but it's going to be nothing to do with obviously call center studio. It's just going to be the telco side. But we have also our networking that we work with some major telco companies here that we can speed up that process as well. Try to get it done as soon as we can. And always we can get temporary dial-in numbers as well and stick them behind the 1-300 numbers so that the customer can still continue to operate with their existing numbers if it's needed.
Yeah, that telco part is really important because
Yes.
it's actually maybe the only part that we cannot control. If a customer wants to port their number, and if we stick with a difficult operator, it is also blocking all the process. So we have two solutions for that, actually. One is the trunk connection that I just mentioned, and there are some trunk-like connections which I don't want to go into details, which are less secure, but the most widely used one is trunk connection. And the second one is actually we are already integrated with a global telco operator called Voxbone. They are able to provide numbers, I think, in more than 60 countries now, and Australia is one of them. So if we can port the number, or if the customer is willing to get a new number, it is, from our point of view, much more straightforward. We have seen that in some countries they have advantages on the pricing side. In some others don't, so it changes from country to country.
Yep.
Yeah, but again, I want to give an example from an experience we had just gone through yesterday. The integration with the Nigerian company that hopefully we are hoping to sign this week, is that somehow it was actually our bad. We were in the demo, and the team has actually tested the inbound operations, the connections with the operator, but they couldn't check the outbound because the customers say that you're going to be using our lines, so we don't want to do any outbound in order to make sure that there isn't going to be additional cost. This was something that they come up with. So afterwards we criticized ourselves. We thought that we should have pushed the customer, but we had a half an hour period to make the outbound test, and then we were going to get all the team to training. And during that halftime, there came up a problem, an error code result we were having from the telco operator. And we were it was so difficult for us But then what happened is we called in two different engineers that we had. And luckily the customer, the IT guy from the customer, maybe he had a friend, I don't know. He was online with the engineer in the telco operator. And we were able to solve the situation in less than 30 minutes. And it was a complex trunk error connection because every telco operator has their own standard. But the thing that we first thing that was is our disadvantage turned out to be our advantage because they were able to see how reactive we were and how capable we were of solving that issue. So and after the there was a 3-hour session we had yesterday, and they wanted the contract to get signed. So this is again a recent telco adventure that we have yesterday.
Totally understand. I've been through a lot of those, and I'm pretty sure that we can handle most of the conflicts if we have any. But yeah, that part might be challenging sometimes.
Yeah. But we have done it. I would say hundreds of times. So we are immune. We are immune to operator-related issues.
Yes.
So I think we are on time, but we started late, so maybe I can take a couple of minutes more to make some suggestions. So for call center professionals, I mean, we have been talking about technology, trunks, etc. But the most important thing is to keep the agent morale up. So once you get it right, then everything is somehow resolved, even if you're on cloud or not on cloud. So at these times, we need to make it up and working. So the most important thing is the agent morale up. So the second thing is redesigning and actively adapting your IVR. I mentioned about the flights portal that we were telling. Once the flights were canceled, they had to redesign and every 3 hours we had another IVR request. So you need to start designing your processes as well as your call center processes according to the needs that are emerging in the world today. And one important thing that we are encouraging our customers and non-customers as well to use and integrate chat as soon as possible. As you know, there's the big e-commerce thing in the world, and now there is a C-commerce, which the C stands for conversation. So we think that the e-commerce is going to evolve into conversational commerce. I can easily say that 2 months ago, our WhatsApp chat users were like 1/10 of the customers that we have now. So we had a 10-fold increase because of this pandemic situation. And in our case, because every agent can also receive and send WhatsApp chat messages without any additional cost, this was perceived very well by our customers. So we encourage the call centers to integrate if they're not using chat as well. And the other ones are to maybe it is it's not in our control, but to the internet connections speed. It is very important to have headphones. We know that our headphone partners are all out of stock everywhere because the companies didn't want to send the agents home with their current headphones. So it is important as well. And the third-party integrations, as I mentioned, and of course the security. In our case, because we are running on Google, we don't have to worry about, our customers don't have to worry about security most of the time, because the Google is handling it for us. So, Matt, if there are any final questions, we can take maybe one more.
Yes, so I was checking out our question and answer section, and then also just the Zoom chat as well.
Yeah.
Currently, I don't see any additional questions on either.